They didn't just knock down my house. They knocked down a lifetime of memories, and they thought I'd just take it. But I had something they didn't know about: a switch, a valve, and 40 miles of water pipeline that ran straight through my land before it ever reached their precious livestock. My name's Dale Hardwick. I'm 57, a retired hydrological engineer, and I live in a desert valley called Blackstone Ridge, tucked between two dusty ridge lines and forgotten by most folks except those who really belong here. The kind of people who don't need much: a bit of water, clean skies, and enough space to breathe. I bought my land out here 20 years ago after retiring from the State Water Bureau. Built my place from the ground up with my wife, Denise. Lost her to cancer 7 years back, and since then, it's just been me, my tools, and the land. Now, the HOA didn't exist when I bought in. That came later when developers started eyeing the valley, chopping up plots into cookie-cutter ranch homes and promising folks a taste of the good old Western dream. They formed the Blackstone HOA to protect community standards and enhance rural living, which mostly meant hassling longtime residents like me with their rules, fees, and phony smiles. I kept to myself. I wasn't the kind of guy who complained when they sent letters about my unauthorized solar rig or the color of my barn door. Hell, I ignored the fines for keeping a windmill that apparently wasn't in aesthetically harmonious alignment. I figured it'd pass. But last spring, things went too far. I came back from a supply run to find bulldozers on my property. My home, my cabin, the one Denise and I built, was halfway collapsed. Dust filled the air, and there were orange-vested guys standing around with clipboards and smirks. One of them, a smug guy named Carlton, was HOA president. Said they had a demolition order for non-compliant, unsafe structures, and since I hadn't responded to any of the citations, they acted for the safety of the community. I nearly decked him right there, but I didn't. I walked through the ruins, past the bedroom where Denise died, past the living room where we hosted neighbors every Christmas. My knees gave out in the dirt. That night I slept in my truck, in the very driveway they tore up, and when the morning came, I did what I do best. I pulled out maps. See, what the HOA never bothered to learn is that I'd designed and maintained most of the regional water infrastructure before I retired. I knew every aqueduct, every pipeline, and by a miracle of oversight, the main water line supplying the entire northern stretch of the valley, including the HOA's prized cattle farm with over 6,000 sheep, ran straight through an easement across my land before it ever reached their precious livestock. And it had a cutoff valve, a big one, manual, hidden in a shed no one had opened in years. I spent a week getting things in order, called my lawyer, who confirmed the HOA violated multiple property rights by demolishing without a court order, filed suit, got the news that it'd take months in court. Meanwhile, Carlton and his board issued statements about community improvement and said I was a squatter. So I drove up to the shed, cleaned the rust off the valve handle, waited until the weekend when water usage peaked, and then I turned the wheel. At first, nothing happened. Then, by Monday, the calls started. Water pressure's dropping, irrigation system's dry, animals are dehydrated. And then came Carlton, knocking on my gate, red in the face, shouting about sabotage. I met him at the fence, cup of coffee in my hand. Problem, Carlton? You know damn well what the problem is. The entire East Basin is dry. We've got livestock in distress. You think this is funny? Not at all. Funny would be you explaining to your HOA members why you demolished a legal residence without a hearing. He blustered, threatened legal action, said he had the sheriff on speed dial. Go ahead, I said. I got the deed, I got the easement, and I got every right to maintain my land how I see fit. That includes closing access to infrastructure that isn't part of your jurisdiction. He left fuming. I went back to sipping coffee. For weeks, the HOA scrambled. They brought in tankers, tried digging temporary wells, even petitioned the county to reroute emergency water, but nothing stuck. The pipeline had decades of integration, and ripping it out would cost millions. Meanwhile, my lawyer kept the court case moving. Local news picked it up. Headlines like, HOA destroys veteran's home, gets cut off from water, went viral. Folks I hadn't talked to in years came by to lend support. Then came the town hall meeting. Packed room, Carlton sweating through his blazer. I sat in the front row. One rancher stood up and shouted, "You let this happen! You ran off a man who helped build this valley, and now you can't even keep the taps running!" Carlton tried to speak, but the room drowned him out. Eventually, the board voted unanimously to suspend him and drop all enforcement actions against me. But I wasn't done. In court, we reached a settlement. They paid for a full rebuild of my cabin, agreed to legally protect existing homesteads from retroactive citations, and gave me full control over the easement, officially. When my new cabin was finished, I turned the valve back on. The water flowed again, the sheep got their drink. But folks remembered, and the new HOA board, they send Christmas cards now. Funny how things work out. All it takes is one valve, and knowing exactly when to turn it. So, what do you think? Did I go too far? Or was this just the kind of justice that folks like Carlton never see coming? Let me know down in the comments. And if you've ever had to stand your ground against a power-drunk HOA, I want to hear about it. Like, subscribe, and remember, sometimes the best revenge is turning off the tap until they learn to listen.